American schools are hotbeds of anti-American brainwashing. Teachers and administrators are trained to indoctrinate and enforce ideological conformity. Submission is the norm. Crucible is the true story of one schoolboy's struggle against society's obsession with an anti-American ideology. This young man refused to surrender to the psychological abuse of his superiors and the violence of his peers. In Crucible, Child Patriot, American Victory, two visions of America collide. One is left standing. Roll in. As I'm getting ready to head out tomorrow to the first annual Dixie Fest and to spread White Wellbeing to what will be around 1,500 to 2,000 people there, I have to deal with this because of these issues that are mounting. I have some notes from which I will be chiefly referring to quickly get through this because I simply do not have the time. Please share with your circles, and you'll know why shortly, why we are over here rather than on the regular channel. I wanted to do this roll-in because there are many who claim to be in or supporters of Patriot Front who are lying about what I said on this past Sunday's Going Free stream, misrepresenting. Everything I said about Patriot Front, my laudations, my plaudits for them, the individuals whose goals and behavior comport with my morality, and my criticisms of them are available in the first hour of that 4-hour Going Free stream. Yet I understand that for many looking at a stream that size, they're just going to take somebody else's word for what was said, and that's what's happening, rather than check it out for themselves. So we're going to keep this nice and compact so that I can speak to these issues, and there'll be no excuse for why you did not watch what I had to say, a synopsis of that first hour. But of course, you can go and look at that first hour of last Sunday's video and watch it for yourself. Here's the synopsis of what I said. I said that I strongly admire all the Patriot Front members whose morality comports with mine. I deeply admire their conviction, determination, bravery, and selflessness. I discussed what had happened in Philadelphia. They obtained a permit lawfully. They marched peacefully. They were detained, and when detained, the police take your information. The police, of course, are anti-white. The SWAT team was used on them. There is some unfortunate footage that I referred to of them running away from anti-whites. This was reported elsewhere. One piece of very unfortunate footage was of them running from a single black guy. I condemned the march as deleterious or harmful, if you don't know what that word means, to white well-being. I gave my reasons. They looked like the villain in the anti-white narrative, which then proves the anti-white narrative in the minds of millions of our brothers and sisters. The Nazis wore brown shirts back in the 1930s, and now America has the brown pants. I discussed some possible ramifications for the members whose identities are leaked by the anti-white police force. I said that their identities, if leaked, will become known to the general public, and therefore the really violent anti-whites They would potentially lose their right to self-defense. They would potentially lose their right to fly. They could potentially have their children put into jeopardy by way of these family services. They could potentially be fired from their jobs, expelled from school, unable to work in the fields for which they were trained. They could potentially lose their spouse, a girlfriend, potentially have families break up as a consequence of the anti-whites' efforts to destroy them for having done this march of very little value in Philadelphia. I predicted that the substance of the activism for them and their supporters after this march, and as a result of the consequences or potential consequences, that the activism, the substance of it, would consist of whining and remonstrating about anti-white double standards. BLM is allowed to do it. Whining and remonstrating about the anti-white hypocrisy. Why Antifa is allowed to do all these things. Why aren't we? Whining and remonstrating about how puppies are in positions of power, as though that has ever done anybody any good. Whining and remonstrating about the legal fallout for members as a consequence of being doxxed, and are they going to have charges against them? There are anti-whites who are claiming that they set off smoke bombs so as to punch them in the face and then to run away. The anti-white police and the anti-white courts will, of course, believe the anti-whites in the streets. What kind of charges will be filed? How unfair will it be? So there'll be potentially, if that takes place, there'll be a bunch of whining about that. And then, of course, the shame extorting that always follows. People go out, they do a cost-benefit analysis. It shows zero or next to zero benefit, massive costs. And then they come to the white sympathetic community and they say, help us fund our legal defenses. And that, of course, is not fair to the white sympathetic community to be extorted that way. I mentioned the status of the federal government gave to Patriot Front, which means the status that the FBI, Homeland Security, gives to them. They were defined as a domestic terrorist organization. Now I will read to you from, this is HREP 116-526, Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2020. And we are going to jump over in just a moment. I think it's to Section 2. And it is Section 2H. And this is important. The August 12, 2017 attack in Charlottesville, Virginia, in which a white supremacist, killed 1 and injured 19 after driving his car through a crowd of individuals protesting a neo-Nazi rally, and of which former Attorney General Jeff Sessions said, quote, it does meet the definition of domestic terrorism in our statute. And I, a group of 6 men linked to militia or white supremacist groups assaulted an African-American man who had been protesting the neo-Nazi rally in a downtown parking garage. They go on, of course, one of the groups that was present at the Charlottesville rally was Patriot Front. And then what we have here is TRAC, TRAC. This is the federally funded, in cooperation with Princeton University, database for all of the intelligence communities. This is their storehouse for information on domestic terrorism. And there is a public and private, only for federal agencies and officers and the like, the private segment of it. But there is a public segment that gives a little bit of information, and you can find trackingterrorism.org/group/Patriot-front. And you can find what this Endeavor Track, which is the database for the intelligence community, has to say about Patriot Front. And if Patriot Front is categorized as a domestic terrorist organization, then of course What does that mean, and what does that make the participants? These were some concerns that I shared. I told the folks toward the end of what I had to say about the Patriot Front March that they should, everyone listening, should go to these young men with love, hope, and redemption. Because I said, as I still say now, and you can go and watch that stream, that I want these young men living glorious, healthy, loving lives for themselves and for our people. I said I wanted them to build families and to use effective tools in the service to white well-being, and thereby to take this deracinated race and help us to make it into a people, while they then live wonderful lives with wives, husbands, children, etc. That's what I wanted for them. That's what I talked about. How did the participants, or those who claim to be participants of Patriot Front, and those who claim to be supporters of Patriot Front, how did they respond to me having expressed concern for their members, their individual lives, where they were going to end up, worried about them potentially ending up in prison for the rest of their lives, and their lives being ruined by way of actions that have always proven to be to have negative outcomes for our people? Well, how did they respond? The first thing they did was they didn't speak to a single one of my arguments. Not a single one. I've left almost all, or the vast majority of their comments up in the thread under that video of this past Sunday. I had to delete the extremely vulgar ones, the ones threatening life. I deleted, of course, but needless to say, these people who were writing, who claimed to be members or supporters, are not honorable people. They didn't speak to a single argument. Instead, the majority of them started off by calling me a homosexual, a puppy, a fed, and you know immediately that with such flippancy that these are not serious people, and that they are puerile, to say the least. The adults are not speaking, if you will. Their objections were optics. And as far as we are concerned, in service to white well-being, what we are doing is not about optics. What we are endeavoring to do is to project who and what we truly are to our brothers and sisters who are in the many tens of millions in this country alone, and who would be willing to come over to white well-being if they knew who and what we truly are. So therefore, we don't care what anti-whites say about us. We know that anti-whites will always have something negative to say about anybody who cares about the welfare of white people, of white children. We're only worried about what our brothers and sisters, what they believe and what they think and what they hear. And so we are focused on projecting who and what we truly are to them. We are not trying to, so it reveals quite a bit about those who are saying that it's an optics discussion, as though for you all, perhaps you have something to hide. Perhaps you want to project something other than what you are. But we are endeavoring to project who and what we are precisely to our brothers and sisters. And that is a people who is filled with love, a people who welcomes individuals of all immutable characteristics to join with us to put an end to anti-whiteism, which is destroying Western civilization. So we are focused on the love of our people, focused on our people, not on any other race of man or religion or what have you. And we invite everyone to come over. So what was another one of the complaints and objections that those who are claiming to be Patriot Front members in the thread, and those who and supporters, and on these other blogs that I'm getting word about and screenshots about? where they are misrepresenting, where they're saying I said completely different things. And remember, all you have to do is listen to the first hour of that Going Free. It's the only place I talk about it, just this past Sunday. They complained vehemently that I'm still on YouTube. And they speculate, why is he on YouTube? It's terrible that he's still on YouTube. And then I get a strike on my channel, a spurious strike, which will be lifted. Now, was it done by Patriot Front or Patriot Front supporters? I don't know. You have Patriot Front members and Patriot Front supporters complaining vehemently about me still being on YouTube, and how can I still be on YouTube? And then I immediately get a strike. So I think that it's probably the case that Patriot Front is members or supporters, probably the case, are responsible for silencing a message that has done so much good for white well-being, for our people. And indeed, the other things that they are saying comport with the kind of people that would behave that way, that would think, well, let's even though he's white positive, let's immediately silence him. The next thing they said was that words do nothing. That's the next most popular objection to what I had to say with my criticism. Again, has nothing to do with any of my arguments. It has everything to do with personally attacking me, personally attacking the platforms that I am on. They say words do. So it was he's a homosexual, he's a puppy, he's a fed. He's got this cucking optics approach. I've spoken to those. Then you have this claim that words do nothing. What Jason talks about, that does nothing. He's using words, that does nothing. I will say only this to that infantile objection. Words, concepts, defeated Western civilization. They defeated Western man. They defeated Western kind. Enough said. The next most popular claim is that no white guilt is divisive. They said, and this was said by the exact same people who were saying that words do nothing. Don't listen to no white guilt. No one should follow no white guilt. No white guilt shouldn't be allowed. These people, no white guilt shouldn't be allowed to speak at this conference or that conference. No white guilt should not be positively written about. No white guilt should not be talked about on a video or what have you in a positive light, podcast, video, whatever it is. These same people who are saying these things are the ones who actually tried to claim with such if brazen effrontery, that no white guilt is the one who is divisive. So enough said about that spurious objection. And now the big one, the most popular one, and this one is the reason why I decided to do the roll-in, is because it applies to more people than just those who are in Patriot Front, or who may be in Patriot Front, or supporters of Patriot Front. And that is that they claim we have to show strength. Well, this claim of strength is pure sophistry. They're busily telling everyone not to work with me and claiming that I'm a cuck and all of these sorts of things. My approach is cuckery. And that I therefore don't show strength. Well, let's define strength. When these individuals who are claiming to be members of Patriot Front or supporters, and elsewhere you still see this old idea of showing strength. What they're really saying when they say show strength, and you should always force them to speak to this, is that when they say strength, they mean the potential for violence. That's what they want to project to those in Philadelphia. That's what they want to project to those when they see this on their TVs, when they read about it in their papers. They want to project the threat of violence. That's what they mean when they say show strength. That my friends, is not strength. That is weakness. The anti-whites utterly control violence in the West. They are the only ones able to commit violence with impunity. They utterly control violence. You cannot commit it without going to jail forever. You cannot commit it and win a conflict with the United States of America. You can't even win the local police against the local police department. True strength is self-control. It is the ability to see the landscape for what it is and serve white well-being intelligently in a way that has been proven to work to improve the lives of our people and even change the language and therefore the milieu in which all laws and rules are discussed. True strength is the ability to bring your loved ones over to white well-being. True strength is starting and raising a proud family in service to white well-being while bringing over every person in your circles of influence. Your job, your school, your friends, your community center, the flag football team you play on. True strength is resisting that knee-jerk response to being victimized, which the anti-whites cleverly nurture, prepare for, and use against us. Rather, use that energy to work intelligently for white well-being with the tools that have been proven successful. Seriously, if you cannot bring over every person in your circles of influence, why do you think you're going to change any minds by threatening a violent tantrum in the streets of a major city? A tantrum that the police will easily put down. Some may be curious why I didn't reach out to Thomas, Patriot Front's leader, to provide criticism. Starting a few years ago, I had learned from over at least a dozen people that Thomas doesn't want any advice. I heard that he's a nice guy, but that he is going to do things his own way. In fact, those are the words that I was told repeatedly that he tells people that try to give advice. Last year, I was at an event at a restaurant. Thomas and a couple of Patriot Front guys showed up. Out of the 50 or 60 or so that were there, I think Thomas was the only one who didn't come up to me and say hello, which is fine. But that behavior may evidence that what I had heard about him from so many was indeed the truth, that he doesn't want advice, that he's going to do it his own way. When I and my host were walking to our car, Thomas and his couple of his Patriot Front friends, they were heading to theirs. And Thomas said something to me along the line of good luck, which I took to mean that good luck serving white well-being as I do it. And so I said good luck to him as well as we climbed in our separate vehicles and went seemingly very different directions, metaphorically as well as literally. I respect the energy and determination and all the time he has given, but only where those energies and that time comport with my morality. I have no desire. There is no hope in hell. There's so much that can be spoken to. I don't even know, first of all, if it's true, but supposedly Patriot Front articulated, at least at some point, that they want to build a white nation within inside of the United States. I don't know exactly if that's true or what exactly they mean or anything of this nature, but it sounds like it would be quite bloody and there would be a lot of violence, and I'll have nothing to do with that. That is definitely not the path. I respect, as I say, the energy, the time he's invested, the dedication, where The energy and the time comports with my morality. But the attitude to reject feedback, to reject criticism, is noxious, and it will lead to disaster. It is also a policy, apparently from the top down, of deep disrespect for those who have done and sacrificed so much more time and sweat on white sympathetic endeavors. Perhaps that is why those who claim to be Patriot Front members and supporters have, including prior to my show last Sunday, and currently are doing so much to undermine my efforts for white well-being. No respect. Don't need to hear from anyone else. You don't need input from anywhere else. Maybe it is either a top-down policy or a top-down attitude that ends up making its way like a poisonous gas, suffusing every bit of the group. And that is why now, after complaining so vehemently that I'm allowed to be on YouTube, that suddenly, the first time in over a year, a strike lands on my channel. What a coincidence. Spurious strike that will be lifted. The truth is, I was fighting for white well-being with my face out there since before many of these guys were even born. And they show me no respect whatsoever. When I began serving white well-being, I listened to what the veterans had to say. What worked and why it worked, what failed and why it failed. I distributed many thousands of leaflets. I've spent tens of thousands of my own dollars on white positive endeavors. I have conducted studies on messaging. I have traveled thousands of miles to attend marches and rallies and conferences and to speak publicly. I have been in fistfights for our people. I have helped countless folks behind the scenes in service to white well-being. I have experimented with verbiage with the goal of releasing the powerful Western spirit within us for more than 2 decades. I have authored 5 books so far to help our people, with more to come. I have recorded many thousands of hours of audio and video for our people. I have endured countless attacks from anti-whites and jealous white sympathetics. I have been deplatformed and demonetized dozens of times. I have hired and consulted with people around the world in service of white well-being. I have relentlessly searched for financiers who are not too afraid to get involved, which would enable us to pay our activists and develop other tools that money enables you to develop. I gladly gave up any sort of normal life for this. I could go on and on and on. With the glorious and heroic help from the folks who are going free, we have helped thousands of our people around the world, improving their mental outlook, improving their health, helping them to lose weight, helping them to get into shape, helping them to get off drugs, both legal and illegal, improving their relationships with their spouses, children, parents, siblings, co-workers, colleagues, and friends, enabling them to win for themselves and our people in debates and in conversation, their circles of influence, enabling them to bring new people to white well-being rather than just shuffling them over from some other white sympathetic endeavor, enabling them to make a difference in the world for our people and children, helping them to stay out of situations that could land them in jail, ruining their lives, their spouses' lives, their children's lives, their parents' lives, improving their standing at their professions. They're getting raises and promotions, causing couples to have children or more children because both husband and wife are going free. And one of those beautiful babies is named after me as a consequence. Going free has even helped 9 people to find their inner value and strength, and thereby prevented them from committing suicide. We have pushed the words anti-white and anti-whiteism. We have pushed the words anti-white and anti-whiteism into the general societal discourse beyond the ghetto of the white sympathetic sphere, forever changing the world. Alone and with champions, I am proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with. I did all of this and more. And for those who are going to say that I haven't accomplished enough, for those who are going to say that you're not out in the streets, which, by the way, I was out in the streets for some of you before you were born, for those who are going to say that I haven't accomplished enough or I haven't accomplished more, the first thing I will say is that nothing greater can be done than forcing the concepts anti-white and anti-whiteism into the general discourse. If you cannot see how powerful that is, you might be fit to participate, but you definitely are not fit to serve in any sort of leadership role. The second and last thing that I will say before getting to the 10,000 other things that I have to do so that I can leave tomorrow and bring the message of white well-being to 2,000 more, 1,500 to 2,000 more of our brothers and sisters, something that they won't be ashamed to talk about in their circles of influence. Remember, if you can't bring over everybody at your job, your school, your family, your whatever, it is asinine to think you are going to get into the streets and threaten violence by way of strength, violent tantrums, and accomplish anything. The second and final thing I will say, for those who can't understand how powerful it is to have pushed anti-white and anti-whiteism into general discourse, I'll just say this. How much more could I have done if people like you weren't undermining me? Roll out.